But if you look at China AI story, I think cloud growth, we were sort of behind the space, I have to say. And also the amount of money people put in cloud were behind, the US peers. But one thing we are different is application. Remember, the e-commerce, the gaming portal, they have been using AI to improve the attachments of their consumers. And also the ad tech. Remember, they have been using AI to do the more of sort of targeting advertising, what we call the ad tech development. So all these, they already apply. It's just that they do not be able to separate, okay, this is a portion that rely on AI, I got an improvement on advertising earnings. But actually on application-wise, they probably not too behind, the US peers.
大家好，今天给大家带来的是瑞士银行中国首席分析师的一段采访视频。他在这个采访视频当中分析了中国未来的经济发展、股市以及可能会出台的一些政策。可以看到这位首席分析师对中国还是比较了解的。让我们一起来看一下他到底说了些什么。
Head of Greater China Equities at UBS Global Wealth Management, Chief Investment Office. Let's just start, I think, with the obvious question that we've been chatting about this morning, which is the AI-driven tech rally.
Yep.
Is it overbought?
Well, I have to say, if I have to describe, like from January to now, 30% up on the China internet names, I would say probably that 60% it's purely sentiment, improving on China as a whole. 40% is pure AI. Because the reason why I said so was, if you look at the overall China, take away the internet names, i.e. MSCI China X Internet, actually this is how much the rest of the China stocks have gone up by. So that gives you a perspective, so 30%, the rest was up like 17%, something like that. So that gives you a perspective as why internet names. Obviously, the low valuation was the reason. Remember some of the leading e-commerce portal that have gone up 50%, yeah. They were at 9 times PER. 9 times, and the earnings for the next 2 years is mid-teens. So it's like, hey, not even 1 times PEGA, PE to growth ratio. I think there's something that is very underowned, oversold, and as a result, when the momentum coming back, people say, hey, let's look at what they do, and then the valuation was so low. So these inflows coming in, and that lifted the valuation. So yeah, a long answer to your question.
Is stuff still cheap?
If as an internet as a whole, I think right now I'm saying roughly 14 times for PER. Again, back to the mid-teens earnings for next 2 years. So yep. We still we're not saying expensive, but that run up, definitely makes some of the investors not too comfortable because there would be some profit taking, no doubt, and there will be volatility ahead because the AI story is just the beginning. We are, seeing the breakthrough. The key now is fundamental. Are we seeing some monetization from this AI? We have one company's announced the results. Their cloud growth definitely surprised on upside, but the margins was not so encouraging. And the entire space now going open source, free of charge. Are some of the players going to be affected by these sort of new trend? I think there will be a lot of, sort of up and down in the near term. So back to your question, it's, we still see high single digits on the overall China internet space. We had sort of mid-teen to 20% before the rally, but obviously now we have less upside.
That's a good point to bring up because, as you mentioned, right, AI is still in the early stages. And if you look at, say, the Mag 7 in the US, it's not a monetization game, it's a CapEx game still. Do you think the market understands that? That we probably won't get promising guidance coming out of big Chinese tech firms on what the revenue boost looks like because the pessimistic side would argue it's too soon to be able to model that anyway.
Well, in a way, I think this is actually one of the key questions majority of the investors ask me, particularly among the U.S. names. When we will see the monetization and applications really start to benefit from this AI story.
Yeah.
But if you look at China AI story, I think cloud growth, we were sort of behind the space, I have to say. And also the amount of money people put in cloud were behind, the US peers. But one thing we are different is application. Remember, the e-commerce, the gaming portal, they have been using AI to improve the attachments of their consumers. And also the ad tech. Remember, they have been using AI to do the more of sort of targeting advertising, what we call the ad tech development. So all these they already apply. It's just that they do not be able to separate. Okay, this is a portion that rely on AI. I got an improvement on advertising earnings, but actually on application wise, they probably not too behind the US peers.
At the end of the last year, the last quarter, we saw quite a hefty withdrawal of US hedge funds of investment in Chinese stocks, which speaks to the difficulty in timing this market. Who is buying this rally, and do you think it is this DeepSeek AI moment, is it enough to bring back US capital? And I'm thinking kind of longer term US capital.
From what we understand in terms of the inflow, particularly since Chinese New Year, actually it was led by the U.S. long only. Okay, that's one thing a big phenomenon is long only have returned to the market, but doesn't mean that long only can stay forever. And also we were very under-owned. There was at one stage, our firm has done a survey on top 40 global institutional investor. Before this rally, basically was year-end, their position in China is only 1%. MSCI benchmark is 2.7%. So this is how under-owned China they were in. So when they hear this news, it's always the case. The people that, away from, the happening, they actually have a clear mind and they put the money earlier. We had that before in the past rally. So this is the same similar scenario. And obviously, following that, the APAC long only also coming in. So if you ask me the quantum, probably maybe the APAC long only were the biggest supporter relative to international, but U.S. ones were the ones coming back. But I have to say, to answer your question, we still have we have tariff, we have Trump saying different things, every day. We have the policy response that are known on March 5th meeting. All these would affect how much more long only international as well as APAC long only, how much they want to put in or additional put in onto China market.
That's a good point about needing more information, because you did have a recent report out on the tech symposium that we saw between presidency and private entrepreneurs, and you titled it Rich in Symbolism, which begs the question, is it lacking in material substance? Do we need to see something more substantive and more follow-through from the government in order to give investors that conviction that there is support for the private sector?
Well, yes, definitely. I mean, we actually have been lacking this. Remember, last year, particularly before September, that was the issue. Government saying support of the market without actual measures, without, sort of execution. That was the issue. But having said that, why I said rich in symbolism, it's because this is the second meeting since 2018. And on top of that, since 2021 till maybe 2023, we have a few years of lots of regulatory changes. A lot of these sort of new economy companies are adapting to all these changes.
Yeah. The 2018 meeting, Rebecca and I were talking about that this week. A lot of people missed the tea leaves on that one. And then here we are. So can we at least say that the regulatory story is, for now, behind us? That's that premium, that's the crackdown story, yeah?
I think they are now at least at a stage they are comfortable with the current setting. Okay. And they expect all these leading companies to follow the rules, which they already have. And in fact, one thing we have to understand is a lot of these companies, based on this rule, they have changed the operation side.
Right.
And that's actually, and still be able to squeeze more margins out of it. I think this is something that's positive on these Chinese internet companies.
Okay, we'll have more with Eva Lee joining us in a couple more minutes on the other side of this break. Out of UBS there, of course, Global Wealth Management Chief Investment Officer will be staying with us as well. Right, later on Bloomberg Television, so we had the RBA decision this week, first cut in, 4 or 5 years. How much more? Can they take rates down? We'll be joined, of course, by that name on your screens at those times, on your screens as well. Do send your questions in if you have anything burning there, and we'll try and, of course, get that to Andrew Hauser in a couple of minutes. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg.
Eva Lee, Head of Greater China Equities at UBS Global Wealth Management, Chief Investment Office, is back with us. Eva, I mean, the other side of the story about tech is really the story about consumer demand and what is going to shift confidence in China. A huge part of that story, of course, is the property story. Are we starting to see any green shoots?
From the data that we analyzed, we noted that the months of inventory for the top 80 cities have finally coming down. And the tier 1 cities, months of inventory actually back to historical average. But this is a data that stock divided by past 3 months of sales. So the stock can increase, but one thing we can be, sort of more positive. It's if you look back for the last 2 years, land sales have come down a lot. Property under constructions have come down a lot. So as a result, we can see the stock, gradually improving with the sentiment coming back. They will push more stock out, but it's not unlikely that it will exponentially increase from here. And one more thing, it's even when we sort of looking back at the data, even without any further measures, if the sales, sort of stabilizing, returning, we should see sort of the market sort of hitting the bottom, which is like continue less decline, coming will be in second half of this year without any further measure. Because this is a natural, sort of the market gradually already have corrected a lot in terms of sales, constructions, and all that.
Do all these feel-good stories, property for one, the DeepSeek story number 2, the worst-case scenario on tariffs perhaps not being on the table yet, hopefully that's the case, does that reduce, do you think, the urgency for policymakers to support this economy? Because I'm looking forward to the 2 sessions in a couple of weeks, and a lot of people are thinking, do they still need to come out with a big number there to support this economy? Because it seems, to your point, things seem to be healing naturally.
This is actually my concern. In fact, because we understand that the U.S. review of tariff policy will not be announced until April. So, and they have been sort of responding to the U.S. side in terms of pushing more policy to stimulate the economy. So there could be a potential that they would talk about it, how they support, which is exactly like overnight. There is another news talking about they support consumptions through, the auto and all that. But they might say so, but actual executions could be gradually rolled out depending on what U.S. do. Okay. Yeah, so that's like if market, but good that the market has not, sort of priced in that a lot, but that could be, a factor that could trigger volatility in the market.
So exports make up about 1.5% of GDP growth, at least for 2024. Is your assumption that if we don't get that huge big tariff hit in the next few weeks before the MPC, which who knows with President Trump, but if China isn't able to anticipate what kind of hit it's going to see from tariffs, is your assumption that they won't roll out a number to sort of anticipate the potential hit because of exports and tariffs?
Yeah, I think this is it's not about the export. I think it's also about sentiment as well, right? Because if you look back as what you described, actually our reliance on U.S. export to U.S. has reduced compared to 2018. But let me go back to the base case scenario. Our base case is 10%, but before Trump, the tariff is going to increase to 30%, okay? So the impact on the 2-year GDP is roughly 1%, 0.7 to 1.2, so roughly 1% of GDP. So this is the actual impact. But anyhow, what's the second derivative, which is important? It's a sentiment impact. So as a result, going back to your question is, if Trump hasn't clearly push out the tariff, then they should wait. I mean, naturally, if as a political leader, they should wait and see what Trump is going to do, and then they sort of react accordingly. So that's why MPC might not pull out everything from their pocket to support the sentiment or economy.
So what's the advice now, net? Is it lean into risk even further, or is it worth considering now some of the cheap defensive hedges right now, strategies in this equity market?
Yeah, given how fast the market has moved, obviously we need to look at which are the ones that a bit high on valuation and switch and do the rotation, even within the internet and growth sector. And on the other hand, in addition to it, they should build into some of the yield story, like the financial, particularly the financial. We expect the banks is likely to surprise on upside for the fourth quarter earnings. And also, this is a dividend season.
Yes.
Right? I mean, the financial, the energy, the telcos, they're going to give you dividend. So that will give you some sort of, protections against this volatility. Because I think yield is still, we're talking about 6%, 5.5% dividend yield. Pretty good to pocket that in. Yeah.
It's going to be confirmation really of a winning strategy, right? Eva, thank you so much. Fantastic to speak with you. Eva Lee, the head of Greater China Equities at UBS Global Wealth Management, Chief Investment Office.
首先还是提到了经济政策与股市 ，GDP 定的是5%，财政赤字定的是4%。政策导向还是要强调房地产市场稳定，整治内卷和乱收费，支持新产业，包括 AI。股市反映港股市场表现强劲，超出预期，尤其是科技板块和消费板块表现突出。然后谈到了 AI 对中国互联网股票的影响。我们一起来看一下，首先是说的股价上涨的原因，情绪面占60%，技术推动占40%。也就是说，目前主要还是 DeepSeek 带动的一个情绪面的，还缺乏基本面的一个支撑，所以大家要谨慎一些。而 AI 应用的现状目前已经较为成熟，剩下的就是提高用户粘性和广告精度。云计算方面，部分公司云业务增长显著，但利润率有待提高。AI 应用这一方面确实现在很成熟了，包括写文章，包括编代码，再包括做一些图片、视频之类的。其实用户粘性是越来越高了，而且我目前在做自媒体的时候也经常用到 AI 来去修饰文稿之类的这种动作。所以 AI 的一些应用大家要尽早的用起来。为什么要用起来？实际上没有那么多花花绕绕的东西，就是能提高你的效率，这一点就足够了。关于具体的投资标的与策略，第一个是互联网板块，第二个是防御性的板块，比如说像金融类的银行股，第三个是投资组合的建议，可以是 AI ETF 加政策基建股加现金防御。好了，本期视频就到这里，感谢大家收看。